Hello Internet, I am the Hero of Julios once again with another Dungeons & Dragons video. As a DM, I have to admit that there are a few rules in Dungeons & Dragons that I'm not strictly memorized yet. Such as, the grappling rules, jump distances, things like that. Because of that, I'm learning constantly from my friends, my players, my other dungeon masters that I've met, and just, little by little, I'll eventually have all the rules memorized. But did you know that there is actually a book with a ton of material and a ton of rules that you can actually just crack open and read? It came out when the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons first came out, and it is called the Dungeon Master's Guide. So, inside this book are a bunch of rules, some of which are just variations or alter options for your, players and dungeon masters alike to use in their games. A good example is like how variant humans can take a feat at level 1, or how feats in general can replace ability score improvements. Those are good examples from the player's handbook. But for fun, I figured we could go over 5 variant rules that I have found inside of the Dungeon Master's Guide that I think people are either overlooking or just aren't ones I've ever heard people talk about. So let's get started with the very first one. Number 1, starting equipment. You can start your adventure at level 1 with the standard equipment as described in the background of your player and the background of their class, starting gold, things like that. But let's say you have a really cool idea involving some beholder trying to take over a town or something. Because of this, you want your players to be at that level instantly, so you start the adventure at, say, level 13 or level 12. There is actually an alternate rule located on page 38 regarding starting equipment, depending on whether or not you plan on having a low magic, regular magic, or high magic campaign. If you plan on your players getting magic items every time they flip over a rock, consider letting their level 11 character start with a rare magic item. I actually have a campaign that I'm a player in rather than a DM, and the DM in charge let us start the adventure with one rare magic item each. I actually based my Eldritch Knight fighter around that, where he would take the spear of lightning and he'd throw it, only to use his weapon bond to bring it right back to him. So examples like that are good ways for your players to build a rare magic item into their character. In addition to the magic items, your players also start with a lot more gold. This is to compensate for the gold that they would have accumulated had they started from level 1 and worked their way up. Overall, this is just a good recommended starting point for anyone who just wants to skip to fighting ancient dragons rather than bothering with all the kobolds in a cave. Number 2, Boons. The power to cast burning hands as if it were a cantrip, true sight up to 60 feet, clapping your hands to summon a rock elemental right next to you. These are all fantastical abilities that you can give your players that seem just so unfairly overpowered. And that's because they are. Page 231 of the Dungeon Master's Guide describes boons, extra abilities that you can give to player characters that are above level 20. This is for the people who have reached level 20 and still want to save the world. They still want to crack open continents. They want to live up to their full potential. This wizard is done getting smacked by a single kobold and dying instantly. Now he wants to rain meteors down upon the kobolds that, dared to smack him in the first place. This is for high level campaigns that are still going on. While personally, I don't think I'll ever get to use boons in a campaign because, for the most part, my player campaigns usually end around level 10. This is a great idea for those of you who just want to play the super strong, super OP parts of Dungeons and Dragons while still having a sense of progression. The recommended amount of XP, I believe, is like 30,000 XP every time after they hit level 20. So keep that in mind. It also recommends using boons as rewards rather than just a level up, here you go. For example, maybe that true sight comes from a demigod giving them special powers, or the earth elemental comes from a Dao embedding them with some of her power. Boons are a great item without actually giving your players an item. Number 3, wands that don't recharge. I know saying that out loud sounds a little counterproductive because, wands are supposed to hold magical power, and by flicking it, you can use, magic missile or fireball or detect magic. But consider this instead. Every time your player gets a magic item, they are going to think about what they're going to do with it, how they're going to use it, and how it becomes a part of their character. You want to reserve this for something like a legendary sword at the end of the dungeon, or a rock that summons earth elementals. I know I said that in the last thing, but I really like earth elementals. But think for a minute of the wizard having 8 different wands. Suddenly his spell slots don't really seem that important, and you've given him 8 different wands. But if wands don't regain their charge, as described on page 141 of the Dungeon Master's Guide, they might be a little more inclined to use them more. They might be a little more inclined to not see them as something super important. This is something that you can now put in magic shops or just item shops in general. Much like potions, these are expendables that players can get maybe multiple copies of, rather than a random loot at the end of a dungeon. This does cause the problem of players wanting to conserve it like they would in an RPG, but that's really more up to them than it is to you. It's not your fault that they didn't use their healing potions until the very last dragon. Number 4. On the note of potions, let's talk potion mixing, as described on page 140 of the Dungeon Master Guide. So this one's actually kind of a funny story of how I found out about this one. So I'm trying to make my own homebrew stuff, obviously, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there were rules for mixing potions? And I was like, if you pour the 2 potions together, maybe you get like the sum of their parts, or you get something weaker. And my brother was like, well, what if when you mix them, they get like supercharged, and now you have both potions and they're very strong? And I was like, dude, that is way too OP. Yeah, apparently Wizards of the Coast didn't feel the same sentiment. There's actually a chance that when you mix 2 potions, they can be permanent. A good example of this is a potion of healing, permanently raising your HP by 1d4 plus 1. Of course, this can also have some side effects that the players don't want, like permanently being invisible, or a potion of astral projection leaving them in the astral plane with no way of getting back. This can also lead to something fantastic. Imagine a potion of giant strength permanently making your character as strong as a storm giant. I would recommend using this variant rule with caution, and only if you trust your players to not abuse it. Number 5. Rest variants. This one was the most interesting of the 5 I wanted to present today, as for the most part, everyone's pretty familiar with short and long rests. A short rest is about an hour or 2, and a long rest is a solid 8 hours. A good night's sleep usually gets your players up and ready for whatever's coming next. But what if this wasn't the case? What if a short rest was 5 minutes and a long rest was an hour? Now your players are just bashing through dungeons as if they were, Gilgamesh himself. They are destroying enemies left and right, and the spellcasters in the party are just blasting away with everything they got because they know they're going to get those spell slots back before they even have to slightly worry about a fight. A recommendation, even in the Dungeon Master's Guide, is to increase the difficulty of the encounters because of this. But this is a great rest variant, in my opinion, for players who are super into combat. I'm more of a roleplay DM myself, but I do have players who love to just fight everything that comes in front of them. And I think if I run a campaign for them again, this will definitely be the rest variant that I'm going to give a try. That way they're always ready. I can give them unique and interesting combat encounters without worrying about what's going to happen next, because I know they're just going to take a nap and feel fine. The alternate to this is gritty realism. With this, a long rest becomes an entire week, and a short rest is 8 hours. This is pretty okay for fighters, but imagine the wizard in the party, whose spell slots only come back little by little each day, till an entire week is how he gets his spells back. This is for heavy role-playing adventures. This is where combat is an absolute last resort, and you are spending way more time in a city than you are in a dungeon. This is for political intrigue. This is for negotiation. This is for gritty realism. Suddenly, a band of orcs coming towards the town seems a lot more terrifying than it used to, because it's not, okay, they're going to be here in 6 hours. If we all take, a short rest, we can get some spell slots back. No, 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 no. They're coming in 6 hours. You don't even have a short rest. This is danger levels. A recommendation, not in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but from me myself. If you're going to make combat encounters, make them terrifying, but make them avoidable. If you know a orc warband is coming, maybe leave town. Find a place to hide. Get into the sewers. Set traps. Try to avoid fighting, and instead use your head. So basically, this is the hard mode of Dungeons and Dragons, where I guess you could say epic heroism is the easy mode. These rest variants are just ways of making your players think about their resources more or less, depending on which variant you're going to be using. So there you have it. 5 additional rules, variations of rules, just other ways to play Dungeons and Dragons. I would definitely recommend letting your players know you plan on switching up these rules, because they may be like me and just weren't aware of them. If you were aware of all 5, I'm sorry to have wasted your time. This was a terrible video. If you even learned one of these rules from this video, then I would recommend giving it a try in your next Dungeons & Dragons campaign. See if your players like it. Personally, I really want to try the mixing potions one. The wand variant seems to be working out pretty nicely, and I think this potion one is a healthy next step for these relatively newer players. But, as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. This is the Hero of Julios, Xing out.